Good morning. My name is Rosa Escareño, and I'm the Interim General Superintendent and CEO of the Chicago Park District. I want to welcome all of you to the Chicago Park District. The Rainbow Beach House is not only a beautiful park, but it is a vital part of this community. With its abundant programs, activities, and nature spaces, it's just one example of the presence that our 600 parks represent, and that they are the anchors of the communities that they sit on, providing really important services and programs. Today, I'm very pleased and honored to join Mayor Lightfoot, as well as welcome Alderman Cardona of the 31st Ward, which he's my alderman. I'm on good behavior here. And then also Alderman Silverstein, who is here from the 50th Ward. And to join my colleagues, Chicago Public School Chief Executive Officer Pedro Martinez and Chicago Public Library Commissioner Chris Brown. We are here to announce the finalists of the Chicago Works Community Challenge Grant Program. Parks support our recreational interests and fill our lives with great experiences. They provide our children and families opportunities to explore, to be active, and to fully realize their healthy ways through sports and other important engagement activities. Parks are also gathering places where residents of all ages and all backgrounds connect with one another to develop the ties that strengthen every single neighborhood. This is why park investments are so vital. Building better parks enables all of us to enhance the park experience and create valuable opportunities for neighborhoods, children, and families. And I'm so excited that 4 of the Chicago Works grants being announced today will bring meaningful investments and opportunities to the entire park system. Parks like Warren Park in the West Ridge community, Columbus Park in the Austin community, Kelvin Park in Hermosa, and right here in Rainbow Beach Park in Chicago South Side. I'd like to acknowledge the residents who submitted their applications and were the ones that actually helped to secure the grants for these projects. And I want to thank the applicants for their commitment to parks and to their communities. It is this type of community engagement and involvement that makes Chicago great. But for us in the park system, we rely on these community partners to really help us expand the breadth and reach of what we do at the park. So thank you so much. During my 3 months with the Chicago Park District, I have met so many residents, volunteers, and partners who understand the value of parks and commit of their time, talents, and resources in making them stronger, better every single day. And by securing a $1.5 million in each of the Chicago Works for each of these projects also helps the Park District free up other funds, a total of about $6 million, that we will be able to maximize our annual capital budget to ensure that we're actually then using those investments to go into other areas of need. I'd like to thank Mayor Lightfoot for your commitment to making critical investments in every community, especially those in most need, and especially for us at the park for supporting the parks and the families that truly rely on them every single day. In the coming months, we look forward to working with the community stakeholders to finalize the plans for each of these projects. And I'm also very excited that the projects awarded today are also going to what I just earlier called the tripod of departments and agencies that work together with me. So our partners at the library system, also the Chicago Public School System, together we actually, when you think about it, we touch just about every single family and children across the entire city. So we know that once complete, these investments will have a lasting impact on the lives of all of our residents, and especially the kids and families that depend on educational, recreational, and other forms of learning throughout the city. So I want to thank you. And now, a person that needs no introduction, I'd like to welcome Mayor Laurie Lightfoot.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for Superintendent Escareno for that introduction and for kicking off this event. This has been a long time in the making. I kicked off this challenge back in May of last year as part of my 2-year anniversary, and I'm glad to be joined here today by some great civic leaders, including Rosa Escareno of Parks, Chicago Public Library Commissioner Chris Brown, Pedro Martinez, the CEO of CPS, and I also want to give a special thanks to Samir Mayakar, our Deputy Mayor for Deputy Mayor for Community and Economic Development, who was really the driving force behind operationalizing this community challenge. And of course, I want to give a special shout out to our Community Challenge finalists. Back in May of 2021, which seems like an eternity ago, we committed $10 million with the goal of $1.5 million grants going into 7 planning districts in a process really driven by the community to identify projects that made sense by community, to include enhancements to public facilities such as parks, schools, libraries, or residentially zoned vacant city lots. The idea was to take a resource and give it to the community to come up with ideas about what your needs were and how we could, as a city, partner with you on fulfilling those missions. I'm happy to report in response to this challenge, residents submitted nearly 500 ideas that would improve the quality of life and sense of community in districts all across the city. Those 500 applications were narrowed down by a selection committee to 21 proposals that underwent a vigorous community review process, and the ideas were presented and evaluated at regional community sessions attended by over 1,000 residents. And then at the end of last year, an evaluation committee selected the winning projects based upon project viability, facility need, neighborhood activation, and the input of nearly 7,500 survey respondents. So again, we wanted to make sure that the projects that were ultimately chosen reflected an engagement process with the community so that we're going to be funding projects that really met community need. This process has been leading up to this day, where we're announcing the 7 winners of the first ever Chicago Works Community Challenge. Their proposals will be finalized and implemented by the respective agencies, CPS, CPL, and the Park District. And the $1.5 million in funds will be distributed for each project primarily through our Chicago Works capital plan, which was approved by City Council as part of our FY21 budget. And the work on the projects will begin over the course of this year and next. And of course, you know, I'm an impatient one, so I want to make sure that work gets started right away this year so we start to see these projects rise. Later in our ceremony, I will detail the 7 winning sites, but I'm excited to say that they include 2 schools, 1 library, and 4 parks, including the very park that we're in, Rainbow Beach, where we gathered here today. And I'd like to say that not only congratulations to each winner, but a sincere thank you for being part of the change in your own community. You know, we've seen what happens when our residents are left out of conversations and not included in community planning. Disinvestment deepens, racial wealth and health gaps widen, and progress is stymied. We exist as public officials to support our residents, not the other way around. So it's important that in the work that we're doing, we're engaging you, and that the policies and prescriptions that we come up with are reflective of your lived experience and, importantly, your input. That's because the residents of the communities know their block, their neighborhood the best. They know better than anyone what their parks, their libraries, and their schools are lacking, and what would be a value add in terms of investments. And residents know how to make use of vacant lots in neighborhoods. So for anyone to come in and make change for residents without engaging with residents is a non-starter for us. To do so would be senseless, frankly. Positive, impactful, and long-lasting change must come from the community in collaboration with stakeholders all across our city. And we've got to be very intentional about making sure that that collaboration is real and authentic. As mayor, it's a high priority for me to reverse the trend of disinvestment in our communities, and I think we've demonstrated that almost 3 years in. And it's one of my greatest goals to restore vibrancy with a focus on equity and inclusion. In doing so, I realize the importance of including residents in these processes every step of the way. It's a job of government to deliver services and provide residents with resources. But above all else, it's our obligation to serve the people as the people dictate. I can think of no better way to live up to that promise of public service than by calling upon our community members and asking them directly, what do you need? And that's particularly true in this time. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of when this pandemic started here in the city of Chicago. We've all gone through a tremendous amount. We've all borne burdens that we didn't even know existed before this time. That's why it's so important that as we move forward, as we recover, we do it together. We do it locked arm in arm and understanding that our fates are all intertwined with our neighbors all across the city. That's why I'm particularly proud of this challenge, because of the way in which so many people engaged. We have to ask critical questions. How can we make your community strong and beautiful? How can we help you and your neighbors live up to your greatest potential? That is the question posed through the Chicago Works Community Challenge, and today that question is being answered. Through our work with our community members doesn't end today, and I encourage and ask every resident to continue informing us about the needs and the wants of our communities. I've been saying this a lot lately because it's true. We are in this historic moment in our city. We have a number of resources that we've never seen before in our lifetime, and maybe we'll never see again. All the more reason why it's important that we are thoughtful, that we're intentional, and that we are listening to what the needs of community are as we move forward and write a completely different chapter about how we move out of this pandemic, how we recover, and how we do it in a way that sees the entirety of the city, and we do it in a way that is truly equitable and inclusive. So I'd urge you, stay involved, stay engaged, work through your local alderman, contact us directly, work with the city agencies, but do stay involved because we are here to serve you. So with that, I want to thank our city agencies in advance, the Department of Planning, Chicago Public Libraries, Chicago Schools, Public Schools, the Park District, as well as the respective commissioners and teams for their work on the Chicago Works Community Challenge and the work to come. I'd also again like to thank Samir Mayakar and the whole team at Bend, not only for all the work that you did in executing on this vision of the Community Challenge, but in putting together today's wonderful program. I'd like to again thank each and every respondent, semifinalists, and finalists for answering the call to change. I want to thank members of the City Council, those who are here with us today, Alderman Cardona, Alderwoman Silverstein, but also others who have participated along the way. I'm excited to see these projects come into being, and I'm excited about the possibilities. So with that, I'll turn it over to Carolyn Vasquez, who submitted the winning Southeast Region proposal for this very park, Rainbow Beach. Carolyn.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I'm gonna take my mask off. I always wanted to enter a room with music playing behind me, so thank you for reading my mind. Well, good afternoon, everyone. So good to see everyone here, and thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, for that introduction and your kind words. It's an honor to be here today and equally as exciting to be a part of the Chicago Works Community Challenge. This is definitely a unique opportunity for the residents and communities in the city of Chicago. I also want to say congratulations to all the other award recipients. So my applaud to you all. We celebrate good news today, but this is when the work really begins, right? We're all excited, we want to network and partner, but we got to do some work behind it. Let me take this moment to thank those who were involved in planning this event, the members of the Rainbow Beach submission team for their suggestion, and if I could ask you guys to just wave. Thank you all for your suggestions. Mr. Howard Williams, who had a vision and inclusion in calisthenic parks, so thank you, Mr. Williams, for including that at Rainbow Beach. Mr. Mark Porch and the Midwest team out there blackballing and barnstorming solutions for Chicago. Thank you to the Rainbow Beach staff and the Parks Superintendent, Rosa Escanero, thank you very much. And this chance to extend Park District programming options. And finally, thank you to Alderman Gregory Mitchell. I am looking forward to a productive partnership in the future. And for everyone I met today, one of the main things we talked about is partnership and working together to advocate on behalf of the youth in the city. I'm looking forward to that, everyone. So let me start again. My name is Carolyn, and I love Chicago. How many people out here love this city? I want to know, okay? That's what I'm talking about. I grew up on the South Side, raised in the Auburn Gresham community. Love it, okay? My parents were always looking for something to keep us busy doing. That was what my mom always said. Y'all gotta find something to do. She had my sister and I involved in a lot going on, but it was my parents that introduced us to racquetball. Now I know, I met a few people who are undercover racquetball players. It's okay, you can admit it. This is like a support group, all right? My father, Warren Watkins, fueled that fire in me over the years, introducing me to other players, his friends, competitive tournaments, and a second family that has been with me all my life, mentoring me. And honestly, I say in racquetball, it is something like life, but it prepares you more for the game or match you're about to play. Playing racquetball always gave me confidence, discipline, and a set of goals that I was always striving to achieve. That's something important, and especially in a society or a time where kids often feel like dreams mean nothing, they have nothing to hold on to. I believe having that small little fire inside of you, knowing you can go somewhere to get that fire fueled, is a very important step right now in development for children in our city. Racquetball has been a sport that has played a huge role in me becoming the woman that I am today. Not only am I a national champion in the sport, but I am a coach and inspiration to many, and mom to my daughter over there, Isabella, who is an up-and-coming racquetball player. Thank you. I remember when I first picked up a racket and was immediately addicted. The fast pace of the game, the smell of the court even. I couldn't blame anyone in the end but myself for anything that I did wrong, which meant I was accountable to myself. That's something that's very important that our youth need to learn, is accountability. And that's okay, because they can learn it on the court in a safe space. It taught me how to follow rules respectfully and demonstrate good sportsmanship. Sounds like it's far off, but I think some of our kids need a little of that too, okay? They say a coachable child will become a productive member of society. I believe that. And every child should have access to the chance to grow and develop into productive adults. And that's what we want to see. That's what helps our communities grow. So I am very honored to be a part of that process as well. I've been passionate about racquetball, and I have great memories of growing up here in Chicago. My sister is right here, Valerie, and we had good times back in the day. Running around, and I'll tell you, there was one universal rule, and I bet somebody's gonna agree. You just had to be on by the time the street lights came on. That's what Mama used to say. These times have changed, and I look around and I see the effects of violence on our communities, the children, and what happens. It's really sad, but it makes me wonder what our future summers in Chicago are gonna look like for my daughter and all of the other families raising children in Chicago. I believe we must take care of them, advocate on their behalf, and guide them. I know the situation can seem hopeless, it feels hopeless, but Mayor Lightfoot, thank you for everything you do to never stop and continuing to give us opportunities in the community to help save our own community. That's very important, so thank you. I believe we can all be empowered to offer solutions, and that is exactly what the Chicago Works Challenge does. It empowers me as a resident to make decisions, to help be a part of that process, and that was very important to me and the team of people that I work with. The Chicago Park District was a big part of the family time my parents created. They would always take us to Foster Park, and if anyone ever knows, that's a little bit further west, but there was always something going on at the park. We loved to go there. It was busting with people, other kids, and activities. And now I see fewer and fewer teams on the courts. I see that a lot of the courts need a little landscaping love, but they need people such as myself and the other recipients of the awards to step forward and say, we know what needs to be done and we can help do it. The racquetball and hand courts here have been a great part of the Park District history, and Rainbow Beach, I believe, is a flagship for our city. And I said in my proposal, it's a hidden gem. To come over here on Saturday mornings, work out, play racquetball with a backdrop of the skyline, the lake is right there, it's beautiful, it's mentally kind of balancing. So I believe that this is an area that is overdue for and worthy of some attention. Again, thank you all for this opportunity. Witnessing the decline of these courts over the last 20 years, hold on, I did say 20, I don't want y'all to know how old I really am, but I did say 20. I thought the community challenge was something that could be a possible solution and revitalize and repurpose that area. The proposal I submitted was help to enhance the Rainbow Beach experience. There's a lot going on at this park, and I really do believe the children around here will benefit from having expanded options, and as well as the community. Our vision has been to provide participants with healthy options and information. The revitalization of the court facilities will help us, and it will start by empowering the youth we see. The investment initiative, renovating an aging building that ultimately will provide a safe space to host youth and programs like Rackets at Rainbow. After-school fitness programs that can add a resource to the school. We have a lot of things that we offer, but we know there are a lot of things that were taken away, and that's the added value benefit that you speak of. This program can help young athletes and resources for local schools to improve and reach their sport goals while keeping them engaged in something positive and off the streets. Something as simple as coming over to the club, over to the courts, and saying, hey, there's somebody over there that'll play with me, hit the ball around, I think is way better than some of the other options that we got going on. And I'm eager and excited to see the benefits that it will help with the community. Really, the key example, renovating the roof, something so simple, helping out with lockers and benches for the kids where they can keep their belongings safe, and then I, as someone who might be helping them, won't have to worry about someone stealing their items. That's a whole nother issue. So it makes a difference for the existing community and using that use the facilities. In addition, the area of having a calisthenics park will potentially increase the options for affordable fitness in the community. Nowadays, we've got a lot going on with COVID, a lot of mandates, closures, back and forth. It will help people feel like there's a continuity in what they can do in their fitness goals. And then finally, making plumbing and bathrooms functional. That's kind of important. When you're dealing with kids, they have to go to the bathroom a lot. Teachers out there, y'all know. Making it a convenient difference for youth attending after-school training programs. Again, I would like to commend you, Mayor Lightfoot, for all of your efforts, and the City of Chicago for providing residents in the city with the funding, the support, and creative resources to help transform our own communities. From the bottom of my heart, that does mean something, and I'm sure from all of the other recipients, we're out there trying to help out. This one glimmer of hope really does make a difference. This opportunity will increase value to the community network of resources. We are all talking about partnership, and if it's nothing else, we know a little bit here, a little bit there, when we all come together, we can move mountains. I want to thank everyone who has been a part of making this dream come to life. I have been working with youth in the suburbs and across the city, at least for the last 4 years, intently focused on trying to heed that call of action. Help. What can you do? What's different? Nothing beats a failure but a try, I know. And so I figured let's try something different and give the youth options. I know that children with higher self-esteem and confidence are able to make better decisions, confident in what they can do, and I think that makes a difference in how we grow and develop into productive adults, like all of you all are, right? We are excited to serve the community, and I am excited to reintroduce one of the fastest sports on the planet, racquetball, to the Chicago youth. And some of you all who are out there, those closet racquetball players that can come on over to Rainbow Beach and get a lesson. I invite you to come over to Rainbow and enjoy this hidden gem on the south side. There's a lot going on over here. I see the kids, they are not invisible. We have a lot of youth that just wander around the parks in the summer, believe me, with nothing to do. For me to be able to give them a racket and know they might come back tomorrow or the next week means something, because then I've actually got them. And we can keep them from maybe being involved in something they had no business doing that will become newsworthy later. We don't want that. It's positives. If you're inclined, grab a racket and see what all the excitement is about yourself. I know you probably want to. You want to, right? You can benefit from the relationships and memories. If you keep this in mind, as long as you play sports, you can try to pass on what you've learned to help others in their path. Well, this is our chance to benefit from those relationships that we build, that have been built. And I stand on the shoulders of those who have played here before me. Helping others on their path is what we want to do. So again, you all be safe out there. And as I always end when I talk to my kids, I'll see you guys on the court soon. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you all in partnership. Thank you.
The moment we've all been waiting for, and I want to thank once again everyone who made this day possible. It's now my honor to introduce the winning teams, who will then come on stage to receive a certificate and to take a photo. Starting with the Central Region, our first winner is Janelle Nelson. Janelle is a Bronzeville neighborhood parent who had an idea to renovate the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Library's children's section to foster family-based learning and engagement. This work is expected to include a greater emphasis on Dr. King's legacy in Chicago, as well as a beautification of select interior and exterior public spaces to build stronger community relations. To get to this point, Ms. Nelson talked to other parents in the community about improvements they wanted to see in their shared neighborhood. She then created and launched a website to build local support specifically for her community challenge proposal. I'm inspired by the level of civic engagement and her passion for that community. With that, I'd like to have Ms. Nelson and the King Library team please come to the stage. Come on up. All right, next up, the Far South region. Our winner for this region was submitted by Rogelio Lopez. Mr. Lopez is a school counselor at Galisteo Language Academy who had the idea to modernize the school's playground with contemporary climbing equipment, new landscaping, and areas for active and passive recreation. This work will also include the creation of new spaces for outdoor instruction and community socialization. The Galisteo Academy team is here, and please join us on the stage. All right, next up is our Southwest region. This idea was submitted by Layla Truhat Ali, a middle school teacher at Claremont Academy. Layla's project will transform the school's lawn spaces with a cohesive playground that provides structure for recreation for students and neighbors, along with opportunities for outdoor learning. Come on up, sweetie, don't be shy. A sixth grade class at Claremont Academy helped to create this proposal, working with their teacher to brainstorm and discuss their ideal play space. Can you think of anything greater if you're a kid to be able to figure out how you're going to redesign the play space at a school? Pretty cool project. A few of the sixth graders even presented this idea at the Southwest Region's community session at the end of last year. It's a proposal that truly centered the needs and voices of the students at the school, in the work, and that's a great thing. So joining us on the stage, Claremont Academy team, please come on up. Our West region, this proposal was submitted by Samantha Jordan, an Austin resident and artist. Samantha proposed enhancements to the West region's Columbus Park to include an outdoor stage for live performances and movies, upgrades to existing basketball and tennis courts, select landscaping and accessibility improvements, and improvements to natural spaces that foster social interaction. And for those of you who've never been to Columbus Park, it is a stunningly beautiful park on the west side, right at our border. If you haven't been there, you're missing out on a real treat. This park is a critical community amenity for local residents, and I thank the team for their commitment to our city's west side. So, I think the team is already here, and congratulations. Our North region, our winner is Pamela Stouffer of the Warren Park Advisory Council. This project includes Warren Park site improvements for activities such as cricket, horseshoe, and pickleball to foster multi-generational engagement and promote healthy lifestyles. In its community presentation, the Warren Park team made clear these improvements will benefit residents of all ages, from toddlers to seniors. So I'm pleased to welcome this winning team to the stage. Come on up, Warren Park. Next up is our Northwest region. Our winning idea was submitted by Casey Guerrera on behalf of Calvin Park Advisory Council. This Northwest region project will repair the roof of the Calvin Park Fieldhouse and auditorium and make long-needed building upgrades, including making it ADA accessible. Serving a large Latinx community, the Kelvin Park Fieldhouse is the largest building in the area for public use. This type of public improvement project is exactly what we had in mind when we launched this initiative. So Kelvin Park team, come on up to the stage. All right, thank you, Northwest Region team. Next to the Southeast Region. Our final project is the Southeast Region and was submitted by Carolyn Vasquez, a racquetball advocate, as you heard, and volunteer coach. This Southeast Region project will repair Rainbow Beach Park's outdoor handball and racquetball complex with new playing surfaces, seating areas, and landscaping. The work is also expected to include clubhouse improvements involving the building roof, plumbing, windows, ADA accessible entrances, and artwork. And I should say that I was sworn in as mayor on May 20th, 2019, and a week or so before Memorial Day weekend, this was one of the first parks that I visited as mayor, and I agree with you, it's a hidden jewel, and we got to do much more to make it accessible to residents from all over the city, and we are committed to doing that. So come on up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. Again, thanks everybody for participating in this great community challenge. Congratulations to all of our winning teams, and we look forward to seeing the work in action. We'll hold ourselves accountable. You hold us accountable as well. Thank you all for being here and participating in the first annual Community Works Challenge. Thank you all.
Hey everyone, can I have everyone's attention please? Anybody that's not gonna be participating in the Q&A portion of the press conference, can you please take a step outside in your outside conversations just because we wanna be courteous of everybody's time. Thank you.
right, are we ready?
All right, Mayor, thanks so much. All right, members of the media, Asha and I will be bringing down the mic to you. We're going to kick it off with Amy Jacobson. I'm just going to ask you to just keep your mask on while asking the question. Thanks a lot, guys.
We haven't spoken with you since your COVID-19 diagnosis. What were your symptoms like, and did you need to see your doctor?
My symptoms were relatively mild. Kind of felt like a cold, a bad cold. Luckily, I recovered pretty quickly, and of course, I was in consultation with my doctor.
Okay. A number of restaurants are really struggling again. They say they've told us that the vaccine mandates are keeping customers out, servers sent home early if they even are sent to work at all. What metrics have to be in place in order to end the vaccine mandates?
Well, that's not the feedback we've been getting, and obviously we implemented it after a lot of conversation with members of the restaurant community across the city. But look, I think what's been proven to be the case in other cities, and certainly we looked at that very carefully, is that people want to feel like they're in a safe space when they're going out in areas of entertainment. I don't see anything on in the near term that we would take down the vaccine mandate. So I think we'll continue to move forward, but obviously listen to the feedback that we're getting from restaurants.
All right, one last one real quick. Last month, you and Superintendent Brown met with Joe Perilla, and according to CWB Chicago, they say it ended with you calling him an idiot. Is that true, and what led up to that proclamation?
No.
If even it's true.
None of that is true, and unfortunately, a lot of things that get reported on blogs like that, there's a lot of sensationalism, but not a lot of facts.
Tamon Bradley, WGN, Mayor.
Hi, Mayor. Real nice to see you back in action.
Thank you.
I do have some questions about your COVID, but I bet my colleagues do too. So while I've got you, let me ask a couple other topics. The chief judge denied your request to jail the most dangerous offenders while they're awaiting trial. The Tribune report that your letter to the chief judge about that was flawed, had flawed data on electronic monitoring, people committing the crime. So in light of all of that, what's next for you in the fight to get the county partners to change their thinking and crime-fighting tactics?
Well, we're going to continue on. I mean, the bottom line here is this. I don't know anybody that I've talked to who thinks it's a good idea to have people charged with murder, attempted murder, kidnapping, rape, on and on the list goes, to be out in the public without any supervision. Electronic monitoring was primarily intended for nonviolent offenders, but it was supposed to be coupled with community oversight. None of that is happening in Cook County as a consequence of the lack of resources that are put into the electronic monitoring program, and that's a fault of the courts. And I'm going to keep fighting because I believe that having 2,300 violent offenders out on the streets makes our communities less safe, sends exactly the wrong message to victims and witnesses who are seeing these people back on the street just after they've been charged, and it looks like there's no justice for the victims and witnesses. So this is a significant issue and challenge, and I'm going to continue raising this issue. I heard and saw the chief judge didn't respond to me directly. He responded in the press, which I think tells you a whole lot. But I'm going to keep fighting this fight because this is a real issue. And the fact that these judges are operating seemingly without any regard for public safety and not taking that into consideration as they are mandated to do by state law is a huge problem, and I'm going to keep pressing that point.
And Mayor, wondering if you've worked with the mayor of Aurora, and what do you make of him?
I really don't know him. I believe that we'd met one or two times, but I really don't know him. And to be quite honest, I'm really not paying attention to what's happening on the Republican side of the campaign. I fully support Governor Pritzker, and that's what I'm focused on.
All right, Heather Schroen, WTTW.
Hi, Mayor. David Brown, the chief superintendent, said that his #1 priority for 2022 was to restore trust between CPD and the people of Chicago. The Reverend Marshall Hatch said your plan to enact an ordinance that would allow the city to sue people accused of being a gang member for their profits would further erode that trust. Does that criticism merit a rethinking of the plan from your perspective?
No, what it says to me is that we need to do additional work, which we will do, to help educate the public, and including Reverend Hatch, with whom I have a great deal of respect, about what this plan is. This is not taking individual members off the street. It's going after criminal enterprises. There's a huge profit motive that these gangs have to wreak havoc and commit violence across our city, and we want to take that profit motive away, and I think that that is absolutely a tool that we need to be using. Could be used by others. Certainly the state's attorney has that ability, but we are planning to step up and move forward, and I look forward to passage of that act, and then using some of the proceeds that are recovered to help support victims and witnesses in the city.
The Inspector General's report found that your administration's response to the revelation of the botched raid of Anjanette Young's house represented a complete failure of the whole of government. Will you release his entire 163-page report, and do you agree with that conclusion?
I don't agree with that conclusion, and frankly, one of the things that's disappointing to me about the Inspector General's work is that it didn't include any evaluation of itself. You recall that in July of 2019, the former Inspector General said, essentially, I got this, came out publicly and said that the Inspector General was going to be looking at all of the so-called ROG raids. Well, a year and a half passed and nothing had happened, and then the Anjanette Young case came into public view, and the Inspector General acted like, oh yes, we'll take a look at this, as if they hadn't already indicated a year and a half before that they were involved and engaged in looking at these cases. So for the Inspector General to cast a value judgment on other city departments without also talking about what it did or what it didn't do, I think is a huge problem and really undermines the legitimacy of the work that it did. I said that unequivocally, challenged them to actually put something out and supplement their report to talk about what they did. They refused to do that, which is their prerogative, but it doesn't mean that they have clean hands here, and I'm still looking for the Inspector General to step up and do the right thing and talk about why it is that they had access to these files for over a year and a half and did apparently nothing with the work. That's a huge problem for me.
Bill Ruthart, Tribune. Speaking of the former Inspector General, what did you think of his letter to the U.S. Senate concluding that Rahm Emanuel, there was no evidence that he or his administration covered up the Laquan McDonald situation?
I thought it was pretty extraordinary. Why would an Inspector General who supposedly is independent be vouching for anyone, particularly in that context? I thought it was frankly beyond the pale. Now, supposedly he wrote the letter a couple days after the end of his tenure, but still, I just thought that that was pretty extraordinary thing for him to do, because he was offering, in fact, an exoneration of the mayor's conduct. I don't have any opinion one way or the other about what the now ambassador did or didn't do, but for somebody who was supposed to be independent in a position of trust to use that platform to write that kind of letter, to me, was extraordinary.
And then secondly, we're about, believe it or not, 10 months out from petition filing deadline for the 2023 mayoral race. I'm wondering at what point you plan to turn your attention to a possible re-election bid.
Well, I think there'll be plenty of time to kind of discuss the politics later. But as I've said many times from this podium and other venues, I believe in being prepared. And I think if you look at what we've done, particularly on fundraising over the course of last year, it's heading in a particular direction. But I'll save the specifics for a later date. I'm sorry? Soon.
Craig Wall, ABC 7. Thanks,
meaning this year. Go ahead, Craig.
Mayor, good to see you again. Glad to hear you're feeling well. The CDC's recommendation for travel after people have had COVID says avoid traveling for 10 full days after symptoms. I'm wondering why you felt it was necessary.
That's not all it says, Craig. So
it also says travel with a mask, but I'm wondering.
There's a lot of caveats to that. So go ahead.
Okay, well, so maybe you can just tell us why you thought it's absolutely necessary to go to this mayor's conference in Washington, D.C. 1 week after your diagnosis?
So I have been in constant consultation with Dr. Arwady, and one of the questions we talked about is whether it was prudent or not. She's given me the clearance, so I feel very comfortable about going.
The most recent numbers that the city released about COVID vaccination rates and percentages shows that while everyone in your office has reported their vaccination status, there are still 3 people in your office who are unvaccinated. Can you explain why you still have people on your staff who are unvaccinated when you've mandated that they do so by January 1st?
Well, as you know, there's also the ability for people to file for religious or medical exemptions. And I'm not going to get into individual cases, but yes, I think we have a very high percentage of vaccination. And for those who don't, they've either, I believe that they have applied for and received some kind of exemption.
Mike Flannery, Fox.
It's good that you're recovered, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I do want to know, in light of your impending trip to D.C., I would like to know what the status is of the requests that you've made for additional federal resources against the violence. But in that vein, why, following on the heels of the bloodiest year in a quarter century, why should Chicagoans believe that you can ever deliver on that promise to reduce violence?
Well, we did it in 2019. We ended the year under 500 homicides. It was the first time that it happened in many years. We in 2020 and 2021, we, like other cities across the country, New York, LA, Atlanta, Baltimore, DC, the list is long, everybody saw a significant uptick in violence. And that's, not an excuse, but it's putting into context what we, I think, all saw across the country is an extraordinary, I believe, COVID-induced increase in violence. It's part of the reason why I'm pushing on every lever that we possibly can. Not only holding myself and our police department accountable, but also pressing our federal partners, pressing the Cook County partners because they have a role to play in this as well, and really trying to strengthen supports for community. You've heard me say this before. It's not one thing or another that's going to make the difference. It's a lot of different levers that we have to pull. We know that we can't just arrest our way out of this problem, but we've got to hold violent, dangerous criminals accountable right now. And our police department is doing its part in arresting and making cases on really dangerous people. We've got to have the county also step up and do their part. In addition to that, I know that if we're ever going to break this cycle of a spike and then a trough and a spike and a trough, which really goes back to, I think, the 1970s, we've got to look at the root causes of the violence. What is motivating these mostly young men to pick up a gun and solve, in many instances, very petty disputes with the trigger pull? That's really, I think, the key to bringing down the violence in the long term. And what that says to me is we've got to do a better job of investing in these communities and really showing our young people that they have a different path forward. Part of the reason that we're here today in this event with the Chicago Works Community Challenge is empowering communities to invest in the things that they know are going to make a difference in the quality of life. But it's a multi-layered strategy that's got to meet these young people in particular and their families where they are and provide them with alternatives. But, as my mother told me every day in my growing up years, there's also got to be consequences for actions, and we've got to also hold ourselves and these young people and young adults accountable when they cross the line, and certainly when they commit acts of violence.
Has Merrick Garland or President Biden or the ATF or the DEA responded to your requests?
So there were
What's the status?
We've had some preliminary discussions, and I think we're making progress on a couple of different fronts. I don't want to get ahead of any announcement, but they've clearly heard me, and I expect to have more conversations when I'm in Washington, D.C. about those issues. But there have been some very favorable responses from federal law enforcement in particular, so I think we're going to see some additional supports come our way.
What are you seeking?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell people in Chicago what you're seeking?
Yeah, what I asked for is a couple of things. Number one is I want the ATF office here to be fully staffed so they can help us in doing cross-border investigations of gun trafficking. The federal government is obviously uniquely qualified to look at gun trafficking between states that end up here in the city of Chicago. So we need more resources for the ATF to do that. We also need more resources from the Marshal Service to help us identify and find fugitives, and particularly the tens of thousands of people who have outstanding warrants from, again, the Cook County courts where nobody's looking for them. That can't be the full responsibility of the Chicago Police Department. The marshals are really the nation's experts at finding fugitives, and we need some additional supports for them. And then obviously, if we get those supports, we're going to see an uptick in the number of cases, and want to get additional prosecutorial resources to help us prosecute those cases. So those are kind of the big buckets that the ask fall into.
Marianne Ahern, NBC.
Mayor, thank you for your time. I wanted to ask you, obviously you're wearing a mask and you usually took it off. Can you explain why you're keeping the mask on? And also, do you think that Omicron has hit the surge in Chicago?
So I'm wearing the mask, again, to be compliant with the CDC guidelines that it recommends for 10 continuous days after there's a diagnosis. So I'm doing that to be consistent with the guidelines. Also, I just think it's a matter of prudence. And what we're seeing, and I think it's evident on the CDPH's dashboard, is we're starting to see the cases slow and start to come down. We're down, and I don't remember the exact percentage week over week, but we're definitely down a measurable amount from where we are now to where we were even a week ago. We hope that this continues to be a trend, although we are looking for additional information from the state's website. Given the holiday, there's always a little bit of a lag, but it definitely appears from the data that we are now on the kind of downward slope. But I want to caution, the cases are still really high. You know, we have 4,000 plus cases a day that we're seeing. Deaths are high. Hospitalizations are really stable, and I think the concern that we had even a week ago about a shortage of potential ICU beds has really come down substantially. But I think we're seeing a peaking of this surge, but with a lot of caveats and caution.
And as far as your re-election campaign, there have been some reports that the fundraising for this recent quarter was, they characterize it as lackluster. That's not my word, but that's the reports that I've seen. What do you make of your campaign financing, and will you be raising any money while you're in D.C.?
I wouldn't say that it was lackluster. There are some reporting, as you know, there are two vehicles by which we do fundraising, and oftentimes the reporting focuses on one and not both. I wouldn't say lackluster. I think given that we were in a pandemic and the amount of challenges that we were facing, and I say we, but cities are facing all over the country, I feel pretty good about where our fundraising is.
That's a wrap, Mayor. Thank you very much.
I have no formal fundraising activities planned for this trip.
Thanks, Mayor. Have a good trip.